JISCO Alpart Jamaica and the EnviroPlanners now present a public consultation on the Environmental Impact Assessment Report for the proposed bauxite mining and quarrying at the Outer Valley section of SEPL 541 St. Elizabeth, Jamaica.
Good afternoon and welcome to the public consultation meeting for the Environmental Impact Assessment, EIA, for the proposed bauxite mining and quarrying at the Outer Valley section of the Special Exclusive Prospecting License, SEPL 541 in St. Elizabeth, Jamaica. The meeting is coming to you live from the studio of Jamaica News Network, JNN, at 32 Lyndhurst Road in Kingston, with a satellite location at the St. Elizabeth Technical High School, STEPS in Santa Cruz. The meeting is also being streamed live on Jamaica News Network's YouTube page, streamed live on Zoom, webinar link, and listen for this now, that's the https://us02web. That's us02web.zoom us/J/#8194772639. I know that's a mouthful. To participate, you can also telephone, and the number is 876-733-246126. That's 876-733-246126. And there is a WhatsApp number, which is 876-878-1356. You may access a copy of the Environmental Impact Assessment Report at the Social Development Commission office in Santa Cruz. That's at the Santa Cruz Branch Library as well, the Parish Council office, Black River JISCO Alpart Sports Club. It's available there as well at Nain. St. Elizabeth Environmental Planners, St. Elizabeth, and that's EnviroPlanners Limited office at Suite number 5, Seymour Park, Kingston 6. The National Environment and Planning Agency's Documentation Center at 11 Caledonia Avenue, Kingston 5. The National Environment and Planning Agency's website, and that is EPA, that's nepa.gov.jm. This meeting is being recorded by steno writer Miss Janet Ray, and we thank you, Miss Ray. At this time, we'll go over to the St. Elizabeth Technical High School for prayer. This will be done by Reverend Christopher Kennedy, pastor of the Joyland and Abrams Mennonite churches.
Praise the Lord. Father God, you are a great God. You're God who has called us to collaborate. Lord, we are indivisible in our humanity. And it's your word that tells us and informs us that we are made by you from the dust of the earth. And the God, you breathe into our nostrils the breath of life. You said man became a living soul. Lord, we are indivisible in a creation. Lord, we are indivisible in our moral duties towards each other. And so, God, we pray that as this agency, a part of so many in the past who have given tremendous service to our country, to whom we owe a tremendous debt of gratitude, as they poise to be deeper involved in our affairs and in their activities that bring benefit to us, we pray your blessing over the activity. And Lord, as we look forward to a time of greater development where we live and work together in harmony, we pray, God, that there'll be a greater understanding of the role that we play in the lives of each other, and that we cannot survive without each other. We thank you for the great names that have gone before, and that, God, steadily over the years, we have developed our level and standard of living has increased. We thank you so much, Lord. We're indebted to you for what you have done. And we pray, God, that through this development and this activity and this new initiative, Lord, your purpose will be served and that humanity will advance. That Jamaica may, under God, increase in beauty, fellowship, and prosperity, and play a part, God, in advancing the welfare of the whole human race. Let your blessing be upon that which is about to begin, because your word said every good and pleasant gift comes from above and descends from God. We give you thanks and praise, O God. For Christ's sake we pray. Amen. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor. JISCO Alpart. Now, why is this meeting being held? JISCO Alpart Jamaica Limited plans to carry out bauxite mining in part of the area designated as Special Exclusive Prospecting License, SEPL 541. The mining is initially planned for the southeastern section of SEPL 541, known as the Outer Valley. Pursuant to the above intent, JISCO Alpart has made an application for an environmental permit to the National Environment and Planning Agency, NEPA, in accordance with the requirements of the Natural Resources Conservation Authority,
JISCO Alpart
NRCA,
Jamaica
and that's the Act of 1991, the Natural Resources Conservation Permit and Licenses, Regulations of 1996, and the amendments of 2015. The application was submitted to NEPA in May 2020, and subsequently, the agency requested that JISCO Alpart carry out an environmental impact assessment, that's an EIA study, in this specific area, Outer Valley section of SEPL 541, which is proposed for mining and is located in the parish of St. Elizabeth. The environmental permit is required to cover the following activities which will take place in the proposed mining area, to include land clearance, construction of haul roads, mining, transportation, and stockpiling of bauxite ore. JISCO Alpart has engaged the services of the consultancy firm EnviroPlanners Limited to carry out this environmental impact assessment, this EIA. This draft final EIA report is presented in fulfillment of the terms of reference issued to JISCO Alpart dated August 18, 2020. The environmental impact assessment involves the process of identifying, predicting, and evaluating potential environmental impacts of development proposals. The term describes a technique and a process by which information about the interaction between a proposed development project and the environment is collected, analyzed, and interpreted to produce a report on potential impacts and to provide the basis for sound decision making. The results of the study are taken into account by the regulatory authority in the determination of whether the proposed development should be allowed and under what conditions. An important aspect of the EIA process is the public consultation. Now, there are two levels of public consultation involved in the environmental impact assessment process. The first is direct involvement of the affected public or community in public consultations during the EIA study. During these consultations, the project proponent informs the public about the project and obtains feedback as to what issues the public wishes to be addressed. The extent and results of these consultations are included in the documented EIA report. Now, the second level takes place after the EIA report is prepared in the form of a public presentation or meeting. This virtual hybrid town hall meeting is to present the main findings of the EIA, including adverse and beneficial impacts, as well as mitigation measures. After the presentation, participants will be invited to ask questions or make comments related to the proposed project and the EIA report. And after the meeting, you will have 21 days to make comments which are to be submitted to NEPA. Comments should be sent to NEPA's Application Secretariat branch via email, and this is it, applications@nepa.gov.jm, or by mail to 10 Caledonia Avenue, Kingston 5. Present in studio this afternoon At the head table, Dr. Timon Waugh, he's closest to me, General Manager, EnviroPlanners Limited, and lead consultant for the EIA, who will be the main presenter. Next to him is Dr. Frank Ross, mining consultant, JISCO Alpart. Then there's Mr. Basil Fernandez, hydrogeologist. Then Dr. Eric Garraway, terrestrial and conservation biologist and team leader. We also have in studio Mrs. Andreen Jones, environment and safety consultant at JISCO, Dr. Earl Bailey, urban planner and land resources management EAA team member, Ms. Angelique Mullings, archaeologist, EIA team member, Mr. Damien White, vertebrate biologist, EIA team member. Joining us on Zoom from China are Mr. Feng Yipeng, Chief Executive Officer, CEO of JISCO Alpart, Jamaica, Mr. Sun Jing, Deputy General Manager, JISCO Alpart, and Zhang Zhuliu, Deputy General Manager, JISCO Alpart. Now, from NEPA is Mr. Miguel Nelson, Manager, Application Secretariat Branch. Specially invited guests include from the various regulatory agencies, Water Resources Authority, Ministry of Health, Jamaica Bauxite Institute, Mines and Geology Division, political and civic representatives, members of Parliament, caretakers, councillors, Mayor of Black River, Mayor Derek Sangster, Social Development Commission, SDC. Background in JISCO Alpart. Jiquan Iron and Steel Group Company Limited, referred to as JISCO, founded in 1958, is one of the most important aluminium producers in China, having 2 aluminium production bases. In 2018, JISCO announced plans for additional investment in Jamaica to include modernization and expansion of the existing plant, the construction of a new refinery, and upgraded power generation facilities. The feasibility study determined that additional bauxite reserves would be needed to sustain operations over a period of approximately 25 years. So, it is against this background that JISCO is seeking an environmental permit to convert the Outer Valley section of the existing Special Exclusive Prospecting License Area 541 to a Special Mining Lease, SML, which is a regulatory requirement for bauxite mining in Jamaica. And now, remarks from NEPA's representative, Mr. Miguel Nelson, Manager, Applications Secretariat Branch, will now address the meeting. Mr. Nelson.
Good evening. On the 14th of May, 2020, the National Environment and Planning Agency received an application for an environmental permit from JISCO Alpart, Jamaica, reference number 2020-11017-EP00097 for mining and quarrying in St. Elizabeth. The information submitted in support of the application was reviewed, and after screening, it was decided that an environmental impact assessment would be required for the proposed project. Integral to the EIA process is the requirement for a mandatory public meeting or consultation to provide interested individuals, groups, and/or stakeholders an opportunity to have a say in the decision-making process. Consequent to the COVID-19 and the Disaster Risk Management Act Enforcement Measures Order on public gathering, the National Environment and Planning Agency and the Natural Resources Conservation Authority accepted that it would not be prudent to only have a physical meeting at this time. A virtual meeting captures all the major tenets and principles of a physical meeting, and this meeting, which is being hosted both physically and virtually, is intended to broaden the inclusion process and garner the views of all. The audience should be advised that no final decision has yet been made on the application submitted. Participants should note that this public meeting is deemed important, and the outcome from the meeting will be submitted to the Natural Resources Conservation Authority to guide the decision-making process. The agency is present the agency is present to support the process and to ensure that the public meeting is conducted in accordance with the terms outlined in the document titled General Guidelines for Public Consultations, EIA applications. As a regulator, the agency must remain objective and as such will not participate in making comments or answering questions as it relates to the specific development. Of note is the process with which the public presentation and the agency Of note too is the process for public presentations, and the agency wishes to highlight the following with respect to this meeting. A copy of the verbatim minutes of the public meeting is to be submitted to the agency by the applicant within 7 days of this public meeting. The public is allowed up to 21 days after the public presentation to provide written comments to the agency. These comments may be submitted to the Application Secretariat Branch at 10 Caledonia Avenue, Kingston 5, or electronically by email at applications@nepa.gov.jm. That is applications@nepa.gov.jm. All comments received by the agency will be collated and sent to the applicant for their response. The issues raised along with the responses provided by the applicant are incorporated into the respective submissions to the various committees and the authority and will facilitate deliberations on the technical merit of the project. A recommendation will be made to the Natural Resources Conservation Authority, or NRCA, which is the body responsible for making the final decision. Please note carefully that the final decision on the application is the sole responsibility of the NRCA. The agency views public presentation and public participation as extremely important in the application review and decision-making process. Public presentations provide an opportunity for stakeholders to hear concerns, make comments, share opinions and views on the development, and affords the applicant the opportunity to address these concerns, comments, or views raised. Please be reminded that the Environmental Impact Assessment Report for the proposed project is available for access by the public at the following locations: the Santa Cruz Office of the Social Development Commission, the Santa Cruz Library, the St. Elizabeth Municipal Corporation located at Black River, St. Elizabeth, JISCO Alpart's head office at Nain, St. Elizabeth, the offices of EnviroPlanners Limited located at Seymour Park, Kingston 6, the National Environment and Planning Agency's Documentation Center located at 11 Caledonia Avenue, Kingston 5, and the National Environment and Planning Agency's website, which is www.nepa.gov.jm. Finally, and again, be reminded that the comments may be sent to the Application Secretariat Branch of the agency at 10 Caledonia Avenue, Kingston 5, or by email to applications@nepa.gov.jm. Thank you.
And we thank you, Mr. Miguel Nelson, Manager, Application Secretariat Branch, for his address to the nation. Remarks now from Mr. Feng Yipang, Chief Executive Officer of JISCO Alpart, Jamaica, will be delivered by Mr. Sun Jing.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. My name is Sun Jing, Vice General Manager of JISCO Alpart, Jamaica. On behalf of Mr. Feng Yipeng, the Chairman and the General Manager of JISCO Alpart, Jamaica, we are happy to bring you greeting from the headquarters of Jiuquan Iron and Steel Company, the parent body of JISCO Alpart, Jamaica. We are sorry that we cannot be with you in Jamaica today, but due to COVID restriction, we have to speaking to you from China. When we purchased Alpart in 2016, It was our intention to completely renovate and modernize RPAT to be one of the most efficient and productive alumina plant in the world. It is still our intention to do so. Unfortunately, the plant machinery was in worse condition than we anticipated, and the constant breakdown and falling world price for alumina forced us to close the plant in 2019. The modernization and expansion of the plant was scheduled to begin in March 2020, but the plan was delayed due to the outbreak of the COVID pandemic. However, we have not been idle. We have taken this period to revise our modernization plans, including working with the government of Jamaica to identify the additional bauxite resources that will enable us to expand the capacity of our refinery production from 1.65 million tons of alumina annually to 2 million tons more annually. This will be at a capital cost of US $1 billion more over a 5-year period. Over 1,000 jobs will be provided during the modernization phase, and after completion, RPAT will provide at least 500 full-time direct jobs, as well as indirect opportunities for over 500 jobs in the neighboring communities. To feed this plant for 25 years, we will require approximately 7.5 million dry metric tons of bauxite annually. While we continue our exploration work to provide up additional bauxite resources, we are seeking to secure approximately 15 million ton dry metric of bauxite in the Alto Valley area, which is the subject of this environmental impact assessment we are discussing today. It will not only bring jobs to the communities, but will also bring opportunities in education assistance, skills training, healthy care support of clinics in the area, and support and training programs to the farmers of our neighboring communities. JISCO RPAT is committed to continue its long history of good corporate citizenship and community development. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. Sun Jing, speaking on behalf of Mr. Feng Yibang, Chief Executive Officer of JISCO RPAT, and that presentation is coming to us from China. We're almost to the point of the presentation, but just a few more bits of information. In accordance with the NEPA public consultation guidelines, this presentation should be simple, concise, and comprehensive. The main findings of the EIA, including adverse and beneficial impacts identified and analyzed, should be presented. Mitigation measures and costs associated with these measures should be presented. The meeting should inform the public on how they will get access to monitoring results during the construction and operational phases of the project. The technical presentation will be done by Dr. Timon War, the lead consultant for this environmental impact assessment. And after the presentation, there will be a question and answer session where you will be invited to ask your question or make your comment. Of course, we're going to ask you to say your name if possible, and or the community you are representing. You will also be able to participate via phone, and let me remind you of the number, 876-733-246126, 733-246126. The WhatsApp number, 876-878-1356. Zoom live from the satellite location at STETS, and you can type in the chat. I now invite Dr. Timon War to make his presentation. Dr. War?
Thank you very much, and good evening to everyone. This is the environmental impact assessment for the proposed mining and quarrying at the Outer Valley section of Special Exclusive Prospecting License, SEPL 541. From now on, we're going to be referring to that as SEPL 541 and not that long name, Special Exclusive Prospective License. So we will use SEPL 541 to refer to the area, the project area in short. The presentation will be broken out into 4 sections. The project background, which will look at the project location, the background to the project components, and as well as the scope. In section 2, we'll look at the environment, and we'll provide a description of the physical, biological, social, and heritage environment. We also, in section 3, will present a summary of the impacts and mitigation. And then in section 4, we'll talk about monitoring and reporting. Background and description. First, let us look at the exact location of this project. The project is located in the Essex Valley area of St. Elizabeth. That puts it in just about the eastern central region of St. Elizabeth, and it runs alongside the border of the parish of Manchester. The communities included in this area are Pepper, Long Hill, Friendship, Fellowship, Southampton, Northampton, Goshen, Gilnock, Santa Cruz, Mitcham, and Peru Pen. It is to be noted that the area, as you are seeing hopefully on screen, is outlined in that black border. And the total area is just about 30,400 acres. In the map you're looking at also, in blue, are where the ore bodies are located. The ore bodies, which is really the areas that will be mined, will cover an area of approximately 700 acres. By that, what that means is that about 2.3% of the total project area will potentially be mined. Why has this project become necessary? Alpart, which commenced operations in 1971, was later acquired in 2016 by JISCO Alpart, now known as JISCO Alpart. The plant had to be closed after a short period of production in 2019 because of breakdowns and challenges with what turned out to be equipment that was in worse condition than expected. JISCO Alpart has planned a $1 billion investment for the upgrading and the expansion of the plant to move production up to just under 3 million tons per year. In order to make this project feasible, additional bauxite resources would be required. The Outer Valley section of SEPL 541 was selected for this expansion. The project area, Outer Valley section of SEPL 541. Why this area? This area is very close to the plant, as you can see from the diagram, the map to the left. Most of the lands within the area selected, which is highlighted in yellow, is already owned by JISCO. This area is also adjacent to SML Special Mining Lease 167, and this is where mining is currently taking place, and hence the infrastructure for mining exists in that area. It means that the infrastructure could simply be extended to the adjacent SEPL 541. It also is that the bauxite to be found in that area is suitable for blending with existing supply. There's also adequate volumes located in that area. And also, the area is already just about 90% disturbed, that means that the forest was removed and the area was used for other things and is now primarily in grasslands or shrubs. Description of the project. The project will operate in three phases. A pre-operation phase that will last about 5 years. In this phase, there will be construction of access roads, all roads, and other infrastructures, along with site clearing. In the operation phase, phase 2, which will last for about 8 to 10 years, it will be where mining operations will take place, include mining, haulage, and stockpiling of bauxite and transportation to the plant for processing. The third phase is after mining is completed, the rehabilitation or restoration phase. And in this phase, restoration will be done progressively. It means that as soon as a pit is mined out, then shortly thereafter, rehabilitation will commence in those pits and then move to another area. It is estimated that approximately 15 million metric tons of bauxite will be extracted from this SEPL 541 project area. Let's now look at a description of the environment, starting with the hydrogeology. First of all, in terms of geology and stratigraphy, the area is primarily alluvium with swamp and peat. Of course, bauxite is also included and is dominated by the Newport limestone. As far as drainage is concerned, groundwater is very active in the area, very prolific, as is the nature of the limestone, the Newport limestone that dominates in that area. The underground water also flows in a northwest direction. For surface drainage, as it turned out, especially knowing that the Newport limestone dominates the area, it's not surprising that there were no surface water in the Outer Valley section of SEPL 541. There is a lot of water underground in the area, and it is important that we notice that the total resource allocation for water in terms of the wells that are in the area is approximately 89,000 cubic meters per day. Of that, the NWC with 40,000 cubic meters per day and JISCO Alpart with 39,000 cubic meters per day are the major users. The others makes up the other 10,000 cubic meters per day. For the physical environment,
we're having a slight technical hitch, but as soon as all right, perhaps you could try that from your device.
Okay, for the physical environment, let's look first at air quality. And air quality sampling was done for a period of 12 months within the project area. And based on the data collected, the results show that all parameters were in conformance with Jamaica's ambient air quality standard. Water quality was similarly monitored, and it was also found that the water quality from the area was in conformance to the standard for potable water. We also monitored noise within the project area, that is Outer Valley section of SEPL 541, and we found again that there were, the data showed that there was conformance with the standards, except in instances where there were localized sources of of noise, such as machines being operated or heavy vehicles or horns or things of that nature. We move now to looking at the biological environment. In general, the biological description of the site is that the area generally has been significantly disturbed over centuries, with nearly all the original vegetation removed, and this would be more likely for farming and other human settlement or activities. The observed biodiversity is consistent with what is typical of highly disturbed areas in Jamaica, and that is dominated by grasslands and fields. Let's now look at the distribution of the vegetation types in relation to the ore bodies. The ore bodies, as you would have seen from earlier, comprises about 2.3% of the actual area that is being studied. And within this area, those ore bodies are located in areas that are dominated by grassland. The total acreage of ore bodies is just about 690 acres. Of that amount, about 630 acres would be found in areas that would be described as grassland or herbaceous crops or fallow lands or cultivated vegetables. The other area, the largest area, would be secondary forests and fields, which comprise about 6%. So grasslands, fields, etc., about 91% of the ore bodies are found there, and another 6% is to be found in secondary forests. For flora, 30 endemic plant species were noted during the study. 5 invasive plant species were common, including the logwood, the red bead, and the common bamboo. None of the plant species encountered are listed as having special conservation status by the International Union for Conservation of Nature, IUCN. For fauna, the reptiles identified consisted of 11 lizards, 9 of which were endemic, 4 snakes, and 1 freshwater turtle. There were 3 endemic and 4 introduced frogs. It is to be noted that the Peru cave, although a great distance away from the ore bodies, but still within the boundaries of the SEPL 541 Outer Valley section, has a very active ecosystem and including 10 species of bats. Continuing with fauna, the blue swallowtail butterfly was identified in the area. Again, this was distance away from where the ore bodies are located. There were 28 species of land snails from 11 families which were recorded. 84 species of birds were observed, 18 of which were endemic. For heritage, the influence of the area would be by the Tainos, the Spanish, and the English. There were 76 sites or structures that are of archaeological significance that were identified in the area, SEPL 541 Outer Valley section, and these were plantations or remnants of plantation houses, churches, and graves. Most of the artifacts or archaeological structures were either damaged or destroyed, and that would be primarily for development or agriculture. For socioeconomic environment, the communities involved in this was Goshen, Mitcham, Peru Pen, Gilnock, Northampton, Southampton, Pepper, Friendship, and Fellowship. As it turned out from that survey, the land use showed that 50% was used mixed use and another 48% was for residential, with about 2% with having open spaces. The survey was conducted among 220 households within the project area. From the data collected in the survey, 83% of respondents indicated that they believe that bauxite mining causes poor air quality. 64% believe that bauxite mining will be beneficial to the community. 77% believe that bauxite mining would be beneficial to the country. 71% of respondents also believe that bauxite mining and the project would increase employment. 51% believe that it will result in better infrastructure for the community. And 53% believe that it will result in support for local businesses. Summary of the impacts and mitigation. For physical impacts, they are typical of what is expected for bauxite mining operation, for which we have had a long history. Fugitive dust, impact on the aesthetics, safety issues, soil disturbance that could result in turbidity, especially in incidents of rain, and noise. General mitigation measures that would be needed to address those include wetting and covering of areas from which dust could be generated, making sure that speed limits are enforced and controlled to minimize the dust from vehicular traffic, the rehabilitation and restoration of mined out area in a timely manner, contouring of pits so that there is limited chances of landslides and caving in, etc., and to limit the operating hours so that the impact on persons in close proximity is minimized, and of course using low noise machinery. Impact on water resources could be the damage to well and other water distribution infrastructure, as well as disturbance of pumps or pumping systems within close proximity to where mining may be taking place. The mitigation here would be to ensure that you maintain buffer zones from the wells or other water infrastructure, as well as ensure that before mining starts, that the area is scanned to detect where pipelines may be so that appropriate precautions can be taken. For the biological impacts, generally we would be expecting loss of flora and fauna, loss of habitat and fragmentation of habitat from the mining activities. Mitigation again would involve ensuring that proper and adequate buffer areas are maintained, the relocation of sensitive species that may be encountered during the mining activities, and to limit the land clearance to only what is necessary at any one time, and ensure that as soon as possible, adequate and proper rehabilitation and restoration is done. Socioeconomic impact will include changes to land use, relocations, creation of jobs, employment opportunities, and a boost to the economy. Mitigation would be ensuring that farmers are given adequate notice so that they can be making proper preparations in advance to maybe move to other areas, relocation of those farmers to those areas while mining takes place in one area, restoration of mined out area so that it can again be put into farming, and reclamation and restoration activity must generally be done promptly. Monitoring programs should include air quality, waste disposal, water quality, relocation of flora and fauna where that becomes necessary, rehabilitation and restoration activities, as well as environmental permit condition and any other conditions that may be issued by the regulators. For the monitoring program, the existing environmental monitoring and management plan that JISCO operates should be expanded to include the Outer Valley section of SEPL 541, which is the project area, should this permit be granted. JISCO should also ensure that the community councils that currently operate is active and that they are expanded to include the Outer Valley area of SEPL 541. Monthly monitoring reports must be submitted by JISCO to the relevant agencies, and where they are not monthly, whatever the specified time frame is, those must also be done. There is that interagency visit that takes place to verify and to ascertain compliance to the various conditions, permits, and regulation that applies within the mining sector and the bauxite industry, and those must continue and be adhered to. That brings me to the end of the presentation. I guess we will move into the question and answer section, and therefore I thank you very much for your participation.
Dr. Waugh, we thank you very much for the presentation. And just to remind everyone that we have at the head table Dr. Frank Ross, mining consultant, JISCO Alpart, Mr. Basil Fernandez, hydrogeologist, and Dr. Eric Garraway, terrestrial and conservation biologist and team leader, to address your questions when you ask them. So this is the time for you to do that. Let me remind you again of the various options you have to ask your questions. The telephone number, ready? 733-246126. That's 876, of course, 733-246126. The WhatsApp number, 876-878-1356, 878-1356. You can put your question in the Zoom link in the chat section. And of course, we are hoping that gather the turnout at steps is good enough, so we want to hear your questions. Now, I'm going to ask you to manage how you ask the questions. By that I mean, not go on, like you go out of valley and come back in, all right? Just ask the question, say your name too, and say the community from which you have come. So let me apologize. We had a little technical glitch when we were doing the presentation earlier on, and so there are a few slides that you may not have seen, but you were hearing what the slides were about, so we apologize for that sincerely. Do we have any questions coming up? Because if there isn't any in the Zoom chat or wherever it is, I have a few questions here. Could we address this matter of air quality? I don't know which of your, if you will do, Dr. Waugh, or any of the panelists, because you mentioned it, that, people are concerned about it. In the survey that you did. Who will take it on? What will JISCO Alpart do to ensure that people's, the air that people are breathing in does not compromise their health? That looks like Dr. Frank Ross is ready.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. In the mining area, our main problem tends to be fugitive dust, dust particularly on the haul roads and in the haul road area. What we do is that we try to build and limit the haul roads to interior areas of the operations away from the communities as much as possible. We also wet the haul roads. We have a program of wetting the haul roads regularly so that we can keep down the dust that will come up off the haul roads as the trucks pass by. We have also been exploring with NEPA the use of potential chemical dust suppressants that would also control the fugitive dust from the roads. In terms of the mining area itself, we tend not to have significant dusting from the actual mining, as the bauxite has approximately 25% moisture, tends to be pretty moist when we're mining. That most of the operation would come from the trucking. And we try as best as possible to stay on top of that to keep the dusting down. The other issue, of course, is that if the area, if the period is very dry and very windy, and we cannot control the dust to our satisfaction and to the requirements of the communities around us, then we cease mining, we suspend mining until the winds die down before we start up again. If we can't control, we pause.
Thank you so much. That's Dr. Frank Ross. There is someone standing by at STETHS, our satellite location over there in Santa Cruz. Mr. Clark, it's over to you with your question. Could you give us a little bit more volume in here, please? Somebody's going to have to tell us what Mr. Clark is saying because we're not hearing it in here. All right.
Let's see that Dr. Ross is still involved somewhat, and therefore I would want to find out how is it these farmers are going to be accommodated within the structure.
Thank you so much, Mr. Clark. You hear the question,
so
Dr.
that is
Ross.
the question.
Thank you. We really appreciate you starting things off for us.
What is going to be the things that are being done to assist those farmers who are presently on the lands, that 50% of land that is going to be earmarked for mining?
All right. Thank you. Could St. Elizabeth, could you just manage that there for me now so that Dr. Ross can answer? Good question there, Dr. Ross.
Yes, Mr. Clark, what we try to do is before we actually get into the area to start mining, we do a survey of the farmers. We link very closely with the community representatives and with RADA. Now, that area, you tend to have a lot of farmers on lands with scattered parcels of actual active farming. And what we try to do is before we come into an area, one, we give them notice so that to let them know well in advance that we're coming in. We ask them, to limit any sort of long-term crops and to only plant short-term crops within the period when we expect to come in. The other thing we do is we try to relocate those farmers into other areas where close by, but into other areas that are not going to be mined initially, so that they can continue their farming activities while we mine, and then we reclaim and we put them back on the lands. So we may have a time where you're a bit working closely with other farmers in the area, but we try as best as possible to accommodate the farmers in the communities.
I hope that has answered your question, Mr. Clark. I see he's still standing at the microphone. So I sincerely hope that you've heard and that He's speaking, but we are not hearing Mr. Clark. I think there's a little bit of a delay, so we just allow him a few seconds and then.
Sure.
Yes? All right. Are there any other questions coming out of St. Elizabeth or on any of our lines so far? Let me bring another matter to you, gentlemen. Will any houses, any homes be affected? Any relocation of houses?
At this time, we do not have a total idea of any sort of relocation that will take place. However, if the SML is approved and as we go in to do more detailed analysis of the actual mining area and of the road structure that will be put in place, if we have to relocate, we will be talking with the individuals on a one-on-one basis and trying to come to an agreement either to purchase and to relocate them in somewhere that they would find suitable, or to purchase their property outright and then they would live somewhere else where they have access to. So there is a possibility that we will have relocation. The preliminary overview that we have of the area is that it will be minimal at this time.
Minimal. Thank you for that. Reminding you that you can send in a question via WhatsApp. That number is 876-878-1356. That's 878-1356. And the phone number, if you want to call, is 876-733-246126. All right. Howard is on standby. Is Howard from down at Stets as well? Hello, Howard. How you do? Good. Great. Great.
Yes, I have three question, observation, suggestion. In regards to the roads, because there are three main roads that is within the mining area: Santa Cruz to Gutters, the Lovely Point Road, and the Nain to Amos Road. And some way, somehow, you're going to have to touch that road, or these three roads. I hope that in all process, that Alpart will help with the rehabilitation of these three roads, because they're going to come under tremendous pressure, spillage, and all different kind of factors that are going to come across on these roads. So I hope that you have it in your budget to assist with these three roads. Secondly, rehabilitation. After mining or in some area, you're going to be left with some battle scars. What I would suggest for you to do with those scars when you're doing your rehabilitation, try and seal those scars and let water, some form of settlement, so at least you create some micro dams, so at least you can help to filter it to assist the farmers. Because with climatic change, anything can happen when it comes to getting potable water or water for irrigation. So I want you to consider that. Now, we went through looking at the flora and fauna. And where the flora is concerned, I'm a little bit concerned because I hope that in these, when you're doing the rehabilitation, that you must consider putting in real orchard crops, right? Reforestation should be so essential. And I must congratulate you. I've kind of perused the 400 odd page document, and I think it was well put together. I didn't see much about the health hazard for humans and animals and so on, but I think it was well put together, and I must congratulate my former lecturer, Miss Dr. Eleanor Jones. I think she's part of this team, but I think it's a good document. If you read the 400 pages, the maps are concise and accurate, and I think that the parameters that he used to do the questionnaire were satisfactory.
Thank you so much. Really, thank you for your input, Howard. Lots of things happening there down in St. Elizabeth. I'm happy to see that the questions are coming. Do we have somebody else? Okay. Do we have somebody else? Yes, a WhatsApp question now. Sitya now. There are graves on parts of these areas. Why my WhatsApp question blank out upon me now? All right. What they're talking about is the graves, and it was mentioned in the presentation. That's sacred to many people. You know, what will happen there?
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, in terms of grave relocation, normally we try our best not to disturb graves that are in the mining area. What we do is we mine around them and we do not disturb them. If, however, there is the necessity for any grave removal, we normally get in touch with the family members and we determine with the family members what they would like to be done with the remains. We have in the past exhumed those bodies or rather the remains, and relocate them to a cemetery within proximity to the family, somewhere that the family is comfortable with, and the remains are re-entombed, etc. But all of this, if it is done, will be done in consultation and with the agreement of the family members. In terms of the questions that were raised by Mr. Howard, just quickly to point out that any roads that we are traversing on, we will assist in maintaining those roads. Any crossings will have traffic wardens at these crossings to ensure that the safe movement of traffic along the haul roads. And of course, the priority is always with the public roads. The public traffic gets priority. The haul trucks have to stop before they're flagged across. In terms of the question of water, yes, this is something that we have participated in. We have worked with the Jamaica Social Investment Fund and JBI in putting in place ponds, sealing pits and putting in place ponds, and those tend to be tied in with greenhouse clusters. There is one, in fact, at Bona Vista, where the area was sealed. Plastic liners were put in and a greenhouse cluster was put in place. There's also another one up at Rose Hill. And in terms of, Mr. Howard spoke about putting together proper programs on rehabilitation of orchards. He can look at the orchards right beside the Alpart Sports Club, where we have put in a mixed orchards. We find that the communities tend to prefer fruit trees rather than forest trees. So we have put in naseberries, akis, mangoes, coconuts, all high-value fruit trees. And what we do is, over time, we lease these to the community or to the community council as an income-generating project.
All right. Thank you so much. We have quite a few people at STETS who would like to ask questions. I hope I have this right. Macadayan, are you know? So make we hear what is going on.
Good evening, everyone. It's actually Nakadian.
Oh,
Macadian Jones.
Macadian, let me apologize to you.
Pointers leading into a question. I would have observed based on the data here, and as Mr. Clark pointed out, 91.4% of the area expected to be mined is made up of farmlands. Mining tends to come with a number of adverse effects, some of which, based on the findings, predominantly will be focused on the farmlands. The point was made in terms of restoration and, of course, relocation. But the fact still remains that wherever mining takes place, there is a significant reduction in the productivity of that of that land, whether it might be used for farming, crop farming, or cattle production. So the question is taking an advanced, I want to say advanced view in terms of how is it that farmers can further be remedied, is how is it that Alpart will seek to integrate technology into assisting some of these farmers that are being adversely impacted. As we believe that with the side effects, if I should say, of mining, there will be the need for the implementation or introduction of some advanced means of farming among the farming population in the parish. The other thing that I want to mention is that Alpart has, in all my days, has been notorious for a few things. One of which is, of course, the displacement and relocation of citizens, and for the most part, the lack of titling for those citizens that are replaced or relocated. I want to find out if there is a structured program and how effective that program is, and now that it is reaching home to the residents of Santa Cruz. How is it that we will better see streamlining of persons receiving their title, for relocation?
All right, Macadian, could I ask you to hold for me? Hold,
Sure
just Santa Cruz, just manage that for me, please. Let me ask you to answer the first two questions, and then if we go back to him, if needs be.
Okay. Okay, Madam Moderator. In terms of the point you raised about 91% of the lands being farmlands, that was not what the study said. It says 91% was in grasslands. As you would well know, since you're from the area, a lot of that grassland is not being farmed. Some of it, there is some cattle, and in other areas, there are a lot of small patches of crops. So as I'd mentioned earlier, we'll try to consolidate and ensure that the farmers can continue to farm while we mine, and progressively we mine and remove them back on relocation. Now, in terms of technology, in terms of improved practices, this is something that we have been doing for several years, where we have worked with RADA and with CARDI and other agencies to try and improve the farming techniques and the technology being used in farming in the communities. We're talking about fertilization practices, crop care. We're talking about greenhouses. We're also talking about the goat herd improvement programs, where we brought in a number of high-quality goats into the area. We arranged training centers and breeding facilities where farmers involved in the program could carry their animals and have them upgraded by breeding. So we will definitely continue to work on this. We worked on Miniset with Ministry of Agriculture, Miniset yams. So this is something that is very close, particularly to my heart, since I have an agriculture background. So we'll definitely continue to work on that. Land titling. The Alpart has basically provided titles for persons that they have relocated. Approximately 90% of the persons that we have relocated, we have provided titles for. We do have issues with some titles, and titling is very much an individual situation. In some cases, persons do not have proper titles to the lands that they're selling to Alpart. We have had issues where persons have been asked and even assisted in having wills probated, transfers made, but sometimes this takes very long and can create a problem, and we do have a backlog. We do not want to have any titles outstanding, and we're working assiduously on that. We have been streamlining our operations. We've been working with the government now. They have a new vesting program where they're assisting in speeding up the whole titling process, and we're working with them on that. So We definitely will continue. We definitely have to improve and will improve our land titling process.
Thank you so much, Dr. Frank Ross. I know we have a lineup of persons. Macadian, I don't know if you'd allow some of the other persons to ask their questions, and then if anything, you come back with the rest of what you have. So let's go back to Steph's and see. Thank you, Macadian. Thank you so much. As soon as we are able to accommodate, you can come back. Just want to make sure we get everybody in there. And who is this gentleman? Just say your name, please, sir, and then you can go ahead with your question.
Collins from Santa Cruz community. Good evening to all.
Good evening.
Now, the impact assessment team has determined that the underground water aquifer is very, very productive in the proposed mining area. It has also established that there are several wells in the proposed mining area. And one such is the Excess Valley water supply well/scheme that supplies a predominant part, a large part of South St. Elizabeth. Now, in the presentation, it was said that in the cases of wells, there would be a buffer zone. My question is, what constitutes a buffer zone? And if it is that a well, such as the Excess Valley well, were to be in the middle of a significant ore body, what would be the approach of JISCO?
Thank you, Mr. Collins. I see Dr. Ross sharing some notes with Mr. Basil Fernandez, who is going to answer this one about the Essex Valley water supply and what could happen, or how are you going to manage that?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We have taken recognition of the Essex Valley well because it has been about 13 years in just getting the well drilled and commissioned into service. And I know it's going on a bit-by-bit basis as they extend the pipeline, depending on the funding between the Alpart, JBI, and the National Water Commission. But if I remember rightly, when I went to site that well, and I was the one who actually sited the well for that.
Sorry, when you say sited the well, what do you mean?
I went into the field and selected a site based on the geology and other factors and drilled a well there, because they were looking to drill more down in Lititz, and those wells would have been very, very deep and not exactly very productive. So we moved a little bit up north of the plant, and we did that. But I remember that there was some mining taking place around, and I think there are some ores that have been removed from that area already. I don't anticipate that there will be any problem with the wells. As we said, there would be a buffer zone. The issue is basically vibrations that may occur because you have the casing in the ground, and if you have vibrations, especially if you're building haul roads and you are moving heavy equipment across those haul roads, you could have vibrations which could impact on the casing of the well, which is a steel pipe that holds the sides of the well open, and the pump is in the middle. If the vibration, you cause the casing to shift, you can have a problem where the pump rests on the casing and it damages the pump, and you'd have to replace the well in total. But I don't anticipate that if the buffer zones are selected and the pre-scanning is done for the pipelines, there should be any problems with the pipelines and with the wells itself.
Thank you so much, Mr. Basil Fernandez, hydrogeologist, and I see Dr. Frank Ross, you wanted to add to that.
Yes, Madam Moderator, just a quick addition to what Mr. Fernandez said. Where the well is actually sited has already been mined. There is ore bodies further north of that location and further south of the location, but they are not in very close proximity to the wells. And haul roads that may pass, or rather a haul road that may pass, will be passing quite far away from the wells. And Alpart has been totally involved with the Essex Valley Water Scheme in terms of funding and other aspects of it, the pumping station, the storage station at Nain, the land was donated by Alpart, etc. So we do have, our engineers do have drawings of where the pipelines are, etc., and we will ensure that we do not affect the pipelines or the well when we mine in future.
Thank you very much. And thanks, Collins, for that question. I think I have Blake on standby from St. Elizabeth Technical. Hello there. Good evening, sir. Thank you so much for participating. Go ahead.
Good afternoon. Really, I'm not here representing St. Elizabeth Technical. I'm glad to be here because this is a school that I came to many years ago. And I'm very proud to be a past student of one of the best high schools in Jamaica. However, I am the chairman of the Alpart Community Council. This council is 32 years old, and we have been working with JISCO, Alpart, and all the previous owners to resolve problems as they arise. There's also a council in the Plateau area, our sister council, and we will be welcoming the Outer Valley members as soon as the time is right. So, I'm glad to be here. The study that was done, I went through the document, was well put together, and I'm sure that the planners will ensure that the word goes out to the respective outer communities that will be involved in this process. I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Blake, and we are happy that you're proud of your alma mater. I wonder if he used to play football. Thank you. Ah, okay, and he served this country in another capacity, I'm being told, as a member of parliament. So thank you so much. We do have, I can see somebody else there now. I can see somebody else there, about two other people standing. Yes, sir, good evening. Glad that you could make it. Did you attend STETS? Were you a student of STETS?
Went to Cornwall College in Montego Bay.
Oh.
But I've been in St. Elizabeth for more than 25 years.
Oh, so that's home now.
I'm currently the president for the Parish Development Committee, St. Elizabeth Parish Development Committee. My name, I should mention, is Alvin Hill. And I am glad that there are economic development that will continue to take place in this parish. But we still would have to, one of the questions that I would love to ask is, what are the mechanisms that will be put in place to formulate the community committee that is going to be engaging with Alpart, JISCO Alpart, in the Outer Valley area. We need to know what mechanism will be put in place to treat with that. And also the employment opportunities for both the skilled and the unskilled persons within the area. How will those persons be treated? What are the opportunities that will be available for those persons? I know that one of the situations that arise also is the issue of the respiratory illnesses. What sort of contribution will Alpart be making to the local medical health sector to treat with probably the increase in those situations when they arise? What sort of opportunities will, contributions will they make towards dealing with that situation? And also, in terms of your engagement with the local stakeholders, I think we need to have a wider participation outside of just the community council in terms of your linkage with the stakeholders within the parish, and I do say the Parish Development Committee.
Thank you very much, Mr. Alvin Hill. Thank you. I see you taking copious notes there. Yes, it seems to turn on your mic, though, because if you're going to be talking, we need to hear you.
Mr. Hill, in terms of the community council and the community interaction, normally our community relation officers and also members of the current Essex Valley Community Council, we move through the different communities, we speak to the persons, we have meetings, town hall meetings with them, and we ask the persons in the community to select and recommend persons to represent them as councillors on this community council. Alpart does not select the persons are selected by their communities and put forward, and they are brought into the community council. Mr. Blake can fill you in a little bit more on the procedure, but definitely we talk to the communities select their representative, and the representative brings their problems to us. And we work together with the council in economic development programs to help to support the communities. Employment was another point that you raised, and Alpart has always been very supportive and tried as much as possible to seek the skilled and semi-skilled persons from the communities in which they operate. In fact, we have developed programs, skills training programs, along with Heart NTA, where we train persons in skills such as welding, pipe fitting, and other areas that can be useful not only to us in the company, but also to the community and to the persons when we are no longer around, and we will not be there forever. So it is good that we put a base of skills into the communities that can be used in future. In terms of health, we have always supported the health centers and the hospitals in the areas, and we will continue to do so as much as possible, as much as we can, where we have worked with the Myersville Clinic and others, providing assistance, medical equipment, nursing facilities, etc., to assist in really trying to improve the health condition of our neighbors in the communities, whether or not we are affecting them, but we need a good, strong, healthy workforce. So it's to our own benefit to work at improving the health in the communities, and we will continue to do so.
Thank you. I noticed something very strange about the people down in St. Elizabeth. There's not one woman who come and ask a question yet. No women not down in the gathering down there. If any women in the gathering, tell them I'm waiting for them to come forward and ask a question before I go to this gentleman who's next, Mr. Smith. Ladies, stand up and ask your question. You're part of the various communities, and you must have an interest in what is happening. And there may be you may see things in a way that sometimes, not the man, but sometimes they don't quite see the way we see it. All right. Mr. Smith? How do you do, sir?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Joseph Sangster Smith. I'm a student of the University of the West Indies, Mona. I'm not from the Essex Valley region of St. Elizabeth, but I'm from St. Elizabeth. So I have two questions. The first one, Mr. Hill had asked as it regards to what are the creation of jobs and the employment opportunities that would be available, because this is important, and I don't think there was any response to that question. To be more specific, what kind of employment opportunities, and how would persons from St. Elizabeth be able to access those employment opportunities?
Joseph, so hold it right there. Don't move from the mic. Just hold it right there. Please answer that question.
The Alpart workforce is made up mostly of persons from the communities. As we put the company together again, as we reopen, we will be putting out requests, ads, etc., for persons to work with the company. Now, we have workers at all levels. We're talking from chemists working in the labs, we're talking about engineers, we're talking about skilled tradesmen, and we're talking about casual workers. When JISCO took over Alpart, they actually recruited and sent off a group of persons to China, a group of engineers, to learn powerhouse skills and other skills, because we need these skills persons working with us. We need the caliber of persons that can work and can absorb these new skills, and we have always tried to encourage it, and we have actually, as I said, sent persons to China to be trained, and they came back and they were working at Alpart, and we hope that as we restart the plant, that we will be pulling those persons back in, and we will be sourcing others to come and work with us and to help to build Alpart and build St. Elizabeth.
Thanks, Dr. Ross. Joseph, I hope you're still at the microphone, Joseph, because I want to ask, what are you studying at the University of the West Indies?
A Bachelor's of Science degree in International Relations with a minor in Management Studies.
All right. I just wondered if there was an opportunity for you to apply to Alpart for work. Mm-hmm. Go ahead. You had something else to say.
After the mining and the land is just there, is there any intention by JISCO Alpart to put an infrastructure there that the communities in the Essex Valley section of St. Elizabeth can benefit from? For example, a clinic, if there are clinics there, will they be able to improve those clinics, or a sports complex, or that's not a part of their intentions?
Can you take that again? I don't know why everything is at you. You need some good cornmeal porridge.
As I mentioned earlier, we have worked closely in the past and will continue to do so in terms of assisting with clinics. There are a number of clinics which Alpart has helped to build or to modernize. St. Elizabeth Technical High School, Alpart was very instrumental in the setting up, the building of that school, and in the expansion of the school. The back play field of the school right now is on Alpart land. And I know the principal has been talking to us about the possibility of expansion of the infrastructure at the school. And this is something that our principals will listen to and will take under consideration. But wherever we are working, we try to develop infrastructure as part of the legacy that we leave behind. Not all of it can be done by JISCO Alpart. We do not have the ability to put in place all of the infrastructure that the community would like. But we work very closely with the Jamaica Social Investment Fund, with the Ministry of Mining, with the Ministry of Agriculture, and also remember that a significant portion of the income generated by Alpart goes into the Capital Development Fund, which is also used by the government for the development of capital projects in the mining communities.
All right, thank you so much. WhatsApp question, and how soon does JISCO intend to start mining in the new proposed mining area?
Once we have approval of the SML, we will move our team back into the areas on a more concentrated basis to do the preliminary engineering scopes, the planning to get the actual infrastructure in place to start mining. So we would expect that we would be in the communities, would be in the areas talking to persons, planning within a year after approval is given, and that we would start mining within 4 to 5 years of the approval.
All right. Thank you very much. Do we have somebody at the mic in Santa Cruz? And while I sort that out, let me just remind you that we have JISCO executives from China who are unable to be here. Earlier on, you did hear the remarks brought from China to this meeting. The CEO, Feng Yipeng, and the Deputy GMs, Sun Jing and Zhang Zulu. So we just want to acknowledge that they are still there on Zoom for this meeting. All right, we wanted to, I'm so sorry that I can't get the mic to you at this point, Andreen, but I think you wanted to have addressed this matter of the health and air quality issues. Yes, we're going to try and get a microphone to you. Thank you very much for that. Let me just introduce Mrs. Andreen Jones. You may want to stand. Yes, Mrs. Andreen Jones, where you'll soon see her and soon hear her while we sort that out. Environment and safety consultant at JISCO. We do have 4 or 5 resource persons in the room. Mrs. Jones, please go ahead. You wanted to talk about air quality and health matters. Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. I just wanted to add to what Dr. Ross said, because he explained one side of the coin in terms of source control with wetting and making sure that you do not clear excessive areas of land. But there is another side of the coin. We have a very extensive environmental network run by our hardworking team, and we monitor air quality and water quality. We have TSP, or total suspended particulate monitors, or PM10 monitors, and these measure air quality. When we cite them, NEPA has to approve the locations to make sure that the numbers are representative and accurate. And these samples we have to report on a monthly basis to NEPA. So this network will be extended to the new mining area. Having reported them, we have to compare the numbers that we get to establish standards. And the NRCA standards, national air quality standards, are standards that take into consideration human health. Those are the primary standards, as well as plant and animal health. Those are secondary standards. So that is how we measure how healthy our air is. In addition to that, we do compensation payments if there is nuisance dusting, and Frank manages the compensation, standard compensation that is given to persons living within a certain proximity to our mining area. So I just wanted to add these comments because I know that there is concern about health issues in mining areas such as the one that we're going to be embarking on.
I really do appreciate your input. Thank you so very much. The other side of the coin, she said she was bringing. She did bring the other side of the coin. I don't know if anybody else here would like to comment on anything to do with that matter. No, it doesn't appear so. You have. I see you needing to say something, Mr. Basil Fernandez.
I just wanted to say that Mrs. Jones and myself have worked closely together as part of the government ALPAT monitoring agencies. Water Resources Authority, as I was the head at the time, Jamaica Bauxite Institute, with Mr. Paris DOIE, who was also retired, Mines and Geology Division, and NEPA, and the Ministry of Health. And we meet on a quarterly basis, and we look at the water quality, the air quality, and various other aspects. Output, mud, red mud, we tour the site, we look at everything, and we get all these reports, and we have made significant strides in getting more green into the operations at Alpat than anywhere else. I keep remembering a story that when I was a technician and working at Water Resources, I stood at Alpat Gate one day for 8 hours to collect a water sample, and I didn't get it until a worker showed me a pipeline and said, walk on the pipeline and you will find the well. And I did. We walked on the pipeline and I got to the well. And that day I learned exactly where the wells were up in Pepper. And I collected a water sample. But Mrs. Jones and herself and the committee that she has there has worked assiduously and very hard in ensuring that we share information and we work towards bettering the environment and the overall operations at Alpat.
Thank you so much. Dr. Eric Garraway, terrestrial and conservation biologist and team leader. We haven't heard you in this discussion, and I want to bring you in. As a terrestrial and conservation biologist, what is your area of specialization where this matter that we are discussing is concerned?
Okay, good evening to all. I am leader of a team of persons who look at the living aspects of the environment.
The living aspects.
Meaning the animals and the plants. Animals meaning from the large things right down to the tiny insects, because they're all part of the ecosystem. And as we go through these mining operations, we need to make sure that ecosystem health is maintained. So my team, and I have Mr. Damon White with me here today, my team has been looking at what's the nature of the vegetation, what would change, what's the nature of the animals that live there, and what would change. And what we have found basically is that this area has been utilized for centuries. It's the plains, that's where the farms have been for centuries, not just on the Liquor Hills, but on the plains. And therefore the lands has been utilized and occupied to a great extent by animals and plants that are able to come into little niches very quickly. That is, as fast as we clear the land and leave it behind a bit, there's some animals and plants, very often not Jamaican plants and animals, that will come into these little spaces. And so the great extent is fairly highly disturbed. After the mining process, we're going to put back in, rehabilitate it in various ways. The farmers generally want, first thing they want is land to farm. Not so much a forest in the classic sense, probably a fruit forest, but that will still allow for certain Jamaican animals and plants to still come back and get reestablished. So I don't think we are likely to lose any major species from far what you can see, but in some ways we might actually be able to enhance and remove some of the invasives that we are seeing.
Thank you. You mentioned that Mr. White, Damian White, is also part of your team. Could we get the microphone, Mr. White, could you stand? While I talk, we're going to fix that microphone for Mr. White. He is a vertebrate biologist. We're getting down into this business now with these. And your work, your specialization, how has that benefited the EIA and what we are discussing here this evening? Mr. White, thank you for just letting me pull on you like that.
Well, thanks for having me. So part of the TOR for the EIA was to
the
look
TOR,
at,
terms of reference.
Terms of reference was to look at what animals are there. So my specialty was to go down there and see we have special animals like what we know, the Jamaica coney. And we have special bats, which are, in Jamaica we have over 22 bats, and we have 4 which are endemic.
You mean rat bat?
Rat bat.
Over 22 species of rat bat?
Yes, and we have 4 which are found nowhere else other than here in Jamaica. So one of the first things that we had to do, we had to go around and make sure that, to see what animals are there. And we didn't find any of our major protected animals. in the area that is going to be mined.
When you're doing this kind of work, you go day and night, because right about this night work, that.
Yeah, man. So we go out there day and night. We put out cameras. We camp out. We meet the people. Because remember, you know, if we can't do this survey without the help of the people, because the people live there and they are on the farm. And we might come down there for a limited sample area. So first we have to talk to the farmer, talk to the residents. And then we have to put out the equipment to confirm what is there. And we do a lot of that. So we enjoy that work, and we got information like the animals which is found in the pond out there, you know, like the turtle, we find out much turtle. We look at the frogs and all of that. So what I should say is the team did a very good job in identifying the animals, and we also make sure that the proposed mining areas didn't have any impact on the animals that we found.
Thank you. Thank you very, very much. And you know that there's an archaeologist sitting there, and I think she's thinking to herself, I hope she doesn't bother ask me to speak. But I'm going to ask you to speak, and that's Ms. Angelique Mullings, archaeologist, because you're coming at this thing from a different perspective, and the people in St. Elizabeth, or Jamaicans generally speaking, would want to know really what is it that will be affected, or what did you find as part of the team where archaeology is concerned?
Okay, well, good evening, everybody. As was mentioned during the presentation, in the potential mining area that we're looking at, a lot of the remains of things like plantation buildings have already been destroyed due to development, or, you know, built over, or just left to ruin. So during my part of the assessment, I went around documenting all of the different archaeological sites that are in the area, which are mostly plantation buildings, but also buildings from early buildings from towns in the area, like in Santa Cruz. So those have been documented to make sure that in any potential mining activity, those can be avoided and will not be destroyed.
And the plantation buildings, they're all pretty much destroyed from that era.
From that era,
Yeah.
mostly in ruins at the moment,
Yeah,
yes.
in ruins. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
But
Any good bricks left out of any of them? Now, I asked that question because don't forget that it was a plantation down in Trelawney where every single brick was taken and moved and taken to the University of the West Indies to build the chapel. That's why I asked that. Any good bricks leave there?
Some stones have been left, but no whole structures from the plantation buildings.
Yeah. Thank you so very much for allowing me to pick on you like that. And I don't know why Dr. Earl Bailey think he's going to come here and sit down in here. Please go to the microphone, Dr. Earl Bailey. Dr. Earl Bailey, because if you notice what the team has been trying to do, the JISCO Alpar team, is give you a rounded perspective. Yes, so we're going to adjust that microphone for you, Dr. Bailey. A rounded perspective of the work that was carried out, the people involved, and that the residents of the various communities listed, and there are several of them listed in the presentation, some with some beautiful names, I'm telling you. Pepper and Long Hill and Friendship and Gilnock and Goshen. We have a Goshen in Clarendon too, please remember that. Dr. Earl Bailey, you're urban planner and land resources management, and part of this EIA team. What would your role be? This is not Kingston where we're building.
I was trying to stay in the background, but you pulled me out.
Yes.
Well, I looked at the socio-demographic conditions in the area. So basically, we did a stock of the housing in the area, building material, outer material, household sizes. We interviewed about maybe almost 800 persons were interviewed in total. Land ownership patterns, if persons own land elsewhere, and their overall perception of mining. I think we measured whether they agree, disagree, or were uncertain of certain activities of mining. Basically, the residents show positive attitude towards mining in terms of employment opportunities. They spoke about their relationship with JISCO over the years.
Their relationship with JISCO Albart over the years.
Which is positive.
Yes.
So basically we had a good overlay of the demographics of the area, persons' tenure to land, if persons are au fait or not with relocation. There's a high agreement in relocation. Persons are willing to relocate. But overall, persons see a positive impact of the activities on their livelihood. The area, areas of abject poverty, basically lower middle income communities, family size range from national family size of 3.2 persons to over 17 persons in one household in some cases or more. Very disparate settlement patterns in the entire area. Not much significant economic activities outside of the Santa Cruz area to be concerned with significantly. So overall, I'm not seeing any opportunities for significant displacement, whether economically or physically, that can be handled within proper planning.
And further consultations with each family, each household, thank you so very much. Thank you, Dr. Earl Bailey. One of the questions I wanted to ask, Dr. Ross, it was touched on briefly about the haul roads. I have heard people in the bauxite communities ask for those haul roads to be left and also new roads to be put in. How does JISCO Alpat handle that?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. We have worked very closely with both Manchester and St. Elizabeth in looking at the future utilization of haul roads. I'm a member of the Manchester Parish Development Committee, and one of the things we looked at was the main haul roads that we have put in some areas, if they could be left and utilized as a base for Class B or even Class A major arterial roads. After we do our haul roads, I mean, the base of those haul roads are very strong and very compact, and in many cases it just needs the top ceiling to make those really good usable roads for the public. So we work with the Parish Development Committee, we work with the National Works Agency, because some of those roads would be NWA roads, and we work with the municipal corporations. And we do assist where we can in terms of, we do assist.
I'm just telling to speaking to the mic. Yes, and I know you're looking at me because I asked the question.
We do assist in terms of leaving or utilizing these haul roads and some of the pit access roads, which are spur roads coming off from the main haul roads, for future development. Where we actually develop housing subdivisions, we do these in areas that we have mined or bordering areas that we have mined, and we utilize these pit access roads and these haul roads as major roads, major arteries within these subdivisions, such as at Newark and New Wales and other areas.
Thank you. We're going back to the location, and then Zoom, I know there's a question there. We'll come to it right after we bring Alvin back in. Alvin, it's over to you at Steth's location.
Yes. I'm glad that I heard Dr. Ross mentioning that he worked closely with the Manchester Parish Development Committee. And as I had mentioned before, as the president and chairman for the St. Elizabeth Parish Development Committee, I would want to have that same sort of relationship with JISCO Alpat working in St. Elizabeth to develop in terms of the development of the parish. One of the questions that I would love to have answered is, when will we ever move to a point where we don't just export the refined bauxite, but we actually have a finished product in terms of aluminum being processed in Jamaica? Is that something that we will ever see, I will ever see in my lifetime, where we have both the start and the end in terms of the production process?
Alvin,
I know that there was some
Alvin,
mention.
one moment. Let me have them answer that question, because it's a question I've been hearing from the 70s at least. Who is going to take that on? Stay at the microphone, Alvin. I'll come back to you for the continuation.
The main issue around the further refining of alumina into aluminium and the providing of the manufacturing of aluminium products is the energy and energy cost. It is very energy costly to further process alumina into aluminium. Many of the areas that are doing this are really depending on hydroelectric power, which we have very little of here in Jamaica. So this is something that I know JISCO, when they came in, was looking at in terms of modernization and improving our powerhouse at Alpart and to use excess capacity to do further processing. However, I think this was more in line of actual utilization of aluminium for finished products rather than processing from alumina into aluminium. Until we can solve that energy problem, get a good cheap cost of energy in here, then I don't think that will be practical for us here in Jamaica.
Thank you, Dr. Ross. Alvin, back to you. I think you had one other question, Alvin, and then I go to the Zoom question. I'm not forgetting you. Go ahead, please.
Thank you very much. I heard sometime about that there was a plan afoot to develop a tech town or a tech city, you know, with all of the requisite infrastructure. I don't know if that is still something that Alpart is going to take on to actually help to revitalize some like a town like Nain or Junction in terms of having all the necessary technological advancement that it requires.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Dr. Ross, it looks like it's you again.
Well, I'm afraid that this one I really can't speak to with any sort of accuracy and confidence. I know we would like to see a development of additional or improved technological areas, factories around us at Alpart, but at this point in time, I can't really commit to that. This is something that we'd have to look at over the medium to long term if the energy situation improves.
Thank you very much. Let me go now to Zoom question. Which areas in Santa Cruz will be mined, if any?
There is an area in Santa Cruz that is, in fact, stretches from behind steps towards maybe Boxwood area. This is land that has been owned by Alpart. There's a significant amount of bauxite on it, and we have it now on lease so that we can look at mining in the future. That will require, we have a couple of exits from that area that would be available to us to move the bauxite out of that cluster of subdivisions in Santa Cruz onto the haul roads and bring it to the plant. So this is something that we're actively looking at, and we do have a couple of corridors that we have identified that we can move the bauxite on. And, you know, as we mentioned, mining in an area that is built up, it takes a high level of skill and a high level of commitment to our neighbors. And we definitely would be looking at ways of mitigating any form of nuisance, whether dust, whether noise, in mining that area in Santa Cruz. Once that area is mined and rehabilitated, there is the option for the expansion of a number of areas of the township in that area. So we will see what happens in the future.
Thank you. We're coming close to the end of our program, our presentation, this hybrid town hall. There's on WhatsApp, run that for me, Acadian Jones. The perception exists that bauxite dollars are exported in the same manner as does the bauxite. With this perception in mind and the local reality within the region, such as a lack of critical infrastructure, like potable water, run that for me, proper community centers, poor roads, etc. And this is the, please state specifically what planned investment or development we the citizens can anticipate from the proposed mining of our community, if any. You want to take that? The perception. And I think that is pretty much going to be it after you've answered that one.
As a company operates in a community, the company puts back into the community not just the money that goes into taxes, but also our social programs and any developmental programs that we can put together along with the government and government agencies and the private sector. It is a partnership. No individual company, especially in these times of economic strain, can develop an area to the to the level that this question raises, or to the level that we would like. This has got to be a joint partnership, and we are quite willing as a company to sit with stakeholders to discuss development programs and plans, and where we can assist, to assist both in technology transfer as well as in any form of industrial support to develop these areas. But this is not a single company operation. This will have to be a joint operation, and with significant input from the private and the public sector and our neighbors in the communities.
Thank you, Dr. Frank Ross. And we're now at the end of the question and answer session. However, all the questions received will be addressed. And you're also reminded that after this evening, you'll have 21 days to submit your comments to NEPA. And the comments should be sent to NEPA's application secretariat. That's the email, applications@nepa.gov, which is gov.jm, or you can send it by mail to 10 Caledonia Avenue, Kingston 5. I have some individual thanks I'd like to say now. Andrew Smith and Lisa Brown down in Santa Cruz at Stets, we want to thank you. I want to thank Carlington and the entire JNN production team at Stets for the work that they have done. The participants, you took the time and the interest, very important, because this was meant for you to ask your questions, make your comments, and share your observations. I want to thank you very much. Our panelists here, thank you so much, Dr. Timon Waugh, Dr. Frank Ross, who really had a burden this evening, Mr. Basil Fernandez, and Dr. Eric Garraway. Our resource persons, Mrs. Andreen Jones, Dr. Earl Bailey, Ms. Angelique Mullings, Mr. Damian White. I want to thank our steno writer. Thank you so much, Ms. Janet Ray. And I have a few other people I want to... Yes, Stets, the principal, and he's big in sports, you know. I don't want to have to run away if I don't thank him, because he's a very active sportsman. How are you doing, Mr. Wellington? Don't I have the name right? Yeah, man, I've been down there. But I also want to thank in studio Melissa Vassal for running the teleprompter. The team here, the JNN team in studio, I thank you all very much, because I called on you to move mics and do all kinds of things when it wasn't really planned. Thank you. Scott Wilson, director, and Sutanya Williams, thank you so very, very much. I hope I cover everybody. And listen to me now. I have my mask right behind me, you know. See it here. So as this done, mask put on. See how they mask up already? Don't they look handsome? Thank you very much, and take care of yourselves. Continue observing the protocols. Yes, COVID is still happening, We have a kind of what is it now? It's kind of going down, but it's still a happen. So take care of yourself, and thank you so much for participating. Walk good.